So this week, this week we are covering two modules, Module 4 and Module 5. So today we're going to do Module 4 Sandbox, and then I'm going to show you Module 4 assignment, and you'll have time to work on both of those in class today. And then on Wednesday we'll actually do the same for Module 5. So Module 4 Sandbox, let's take a look at it on the website. So we'll go Module 4 here, and then we wait and we wait for Canvas to finally do what it's supposed to do. I can't blame Canvas for that. It's probably our network here. Take some yoga breaths here. All right. Nobody has that much time. There we go. Sometimes if a website is taking a long time, if you hit stop and refresh, it'll get it going. I don't know. It's magic. That's the best explanation I have. Okay, so the sandbox here is called Shape Maker. And once again, we are using the turtle. And in this case, we're using something that we don't necessarily understand, but the code is explained here. The code is explained here. So you try and copy and paste this code and run it and then explain it. And then I want you to go through these questions and run through these kind of what if scenarios in your mind. And you can see here that people are doing some fun stuff. Oh, there are not too many yet, but people will post, you'll see over time, some interesting designs based on this code. So that's the shape maker, and I don't want to ruin it by going through it in front of you right now. But also, so today, before we wrap, I want to go over our assignment for this week, or for this module also. And in this case, assignment 4 is a calculator. Now, I don't want you to create a calculator like you're used to thinking of a calculator, like a calculator that has all the numbers and you can put in all of your numbers, like 85 plus 73, and get the answer. The calculator that I'm talking about is, for example, an interest calculator or a mortgage calculator, or something that could calculate the volume of a shape. And so let me show you what that looks like. And I am going to give you an example that then you won't be able to use. Okay, so I don't use my example for your assignment, but I'm going to create a calculator that will calculate the area of a rectangle. Who knows the formula for the area of a rectangle? Width times height, correct. So I'm going to ask the user for width and height, and then I'm going to convert those, because remember, anytime a user types anything in, it's always a string. So I have to convert those to numbers, and then I'm going to do the calculation, width times height, and then I'm going to output the result. So the first thing I want to do is get the width and the height. So I'm going to say enter, stop popping up over here. There we go. Enter the width input, enter the height, and then I have to convert those. So right now they're strings, so I've used string variables. I'm going to convert those to, I'm going to convert them to, I'm going to use a float, because that gives me a little more flexibility. Then people can enter decimals and it won't give me an error. So I'm going to say FL width is float str width. Okay, so you can see I'm changing str width to a float and putting it into the float variable. Same thing with height. FL height equals float str height. Okay, so now I have variables that I can do math with. So if I say FL area, I know that area is going to be a float because if I take a float times a float, the answer is going to be a float. If I take a float times an integer, the answer is a float. The only time I'm going to get an integer as an answer of multiplication problem if it's an integer times an integer. So I've got FL height times FL width, and then I'm going to print the answer as an F string. I'm going to say the area of rectangle, and I'm going to say FL width times FL height is FL area. So now it'll give me a nice little sentence here at the end that tells me the answer. Well, it's because I'm just doing it in a string. That's just to print out if I was using it for the actual, notice here I'm using the asterisk for the actual multiplication. This I could use, if I wanted to, I could use an asterisk, but this is just for display. So I can use an X if I want to. I could use anything, honestly. I could say by, like width by height. So whatever I want to use there is fine. That's a good question, though. I'm glad you asked it. So if I run this, it says enter the width, 10.5, 12.76, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so there is the area of a rectangle, 10.5 by 12.76 is 133.98. This is what I'm looking for in terms of a calculator. Now, a simple calculator might be calculating the area or volume of a different shape. If you want to go a little bit more complex, you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, you might look up an interest calculator or a mortgage calculator, a car payment calculator, a body mass index calculator, conversion from dollars to euros, or conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit. I would like for you, if possible, to try for 2 input variables from the user, but some of those formulas only require 1, and that's okay too for this assignment. We'll be a little flexible there. So that's what I'm looking for assignment 4. And then Sandbox 4, like I said, is just following the directions and doing the exploration. Now, unfortunately, I have to cut our class a little bit short today. I have an appointment that just popped up, but I will give you extra work time on Wednesday, I promise, in class. So if you're stuck on these or unable to work on them at home, well, you can count on a little bit of extra work time in class on Wednesday. And of course, there's no late penalties for these classes, for these assignments. You just don't want to fall too far behind. So that's it for today. And I'm going to wrap up. If you have questions, you've got about 5 minutes while I close up my stuff here before I have to leave. But I will see you all on Wednesday.